I'm assuming you're watching this video because your dog has exceptional recall at home. Your dog comes running when you call, but the moment you step outside, something just switches. A bird flies past, another dog appears, and suddenly they're just not listening. They're off doing their own thing and you're left standing there wondering, well, what changed? And here's the thing, nothing changed with your dog. What changed is the environment. And if you can understand why that happens, you've actually got a great chance of fixing it. In this video, I'm going to be going through the 7 most contributing factors as to why your dog's recall fails. For point number 1, this is probably something that you might think seems very obvious, and it's actually something that you might have come to this conclusion yourself, and that is that the environment around your dog is just way more interesting than anything you have to offer. So picture this, at home you probably are most likely the centre of attention for your dog. They're constantly following you around the house, they're always wanting to know what you're getting up to, but for some reason, the moment you leave the house, all of a sudden, dogs become more interesting, wildlife becomes more interesting, even just stepping foot out of your front door, your dog is smacked in the face with a plethora of different smells, causing them to just go into overstimulation. And everything that you encounter is all competing for your dog's attention. So you've basically gone from a nice, cushy, concrete box right the way up to overstimulation land, where it's just loud bangs, loud noises, smells, movement, the job lot. Everything but the kitchen sink. So I can guarantee you've probably said or thought one of these phrases. His recall is great until it isn't. She listens at home, but the moment we're outside, she just switches off from me. Any of those sound familiar? Here's the thing. Your Gundog's genetics are wired to hunt. Whether you like it or not, they were designed for a specific purpose. When they see something of interest, whether that be a bird in a field, a cat in a yard, wherever that might be, that dog is then faced with a choice. It's either go get it, or listen to your recall, and I can guarantee you which one they're probably going to choose. So of course their instincts are going to be telling them to go and get it, thus then causing our recall to not be as effective. Next up, and this might be a little bit of a, sniffler for a couple of you out there. Your dog just hasn't learned to choose you in those high distraction environments. And contrary to your belief, recall training at home doesn't then translate to recall training outside. They are two completely different ends of the spectrum. Because I can guarantee you all will have said, oh yeah, Fido's absolutely fine as long as there's no birds, people, or other dogs. So that obviously means that there is some kind of gap between recall at home and then recall outside. Your dog can have perfect recall at home, but then fall apart as soon as there's a distraction outside. That is perfectly normal. Next up, and this is a very common one, might I add, you are probably in the wrong environment. And you might be thinking, and this is a completely logical thing to think by the way, my dog's recall always fails when I'm in the woods. So what do you do about that? You keep going back to the woods in order to work on your dog's recall, when in reality all we're doing here is basically providing our dog with failure every single time that we visit that environment. And if you're already failing outside, you're just practicing failure continuously. And now I bet you've said, I can't trust him off lead. Think of it like us. In order for us to get better at a skill, we have to practice that skill over and over and over again. So if your dog is doing exactly the same thing and they're practicing failing recall over and over and over again, all we are doing is increasing the potency of them failing. And all they are doing is learning that ignoring you works, and that's definitely not what we want. We need to go back to where our dog can succeed and work our way up from there. And now this is the one that all trainers always waffle on about, and it's engagement comes before recall. If your dog doesn't care for you outside, chances are your recall is just not going to work. And I've had a lot of people say they just don't know what to do when the environment is way more interesting than they are. Now, this is usually where a lot of other trainers would say that you need to become the most interesting thing in your dog's environment. Now, my mind instantly jumps to, in that instance, you putting on some sort of pink, stupid, flowery tutu, jumping around a field and expecting your dog to recall back to you because you're dancing around like the treat pixie. These dogs were bred for a purpose, and they are always going to choose that purpose. However, the goal is to be the better choice in that moment. So we need to realistically be tapping into our dog's genetics and what they were bred for in order to have a cat and else chance of competing with them out in these environments. But I'll get to that a little bit more later on. Something we need to take into consideration here is clarity and communication, making sure we know and our dogs know that they are to be faced with a choice in this moment. Make the right choice and you will be rewarded. Make the wrong choice and there will be consequences for that. Now, as much as I don't believe that you need to be the most interesting thing in your dog's environment, you absolutely need to make sure that you have some engagement going on, because if not, we're just not really going to be able to get anywhere in regards to progression. Next up, we have progression matters. We need to work our way through gradually rather than going from one outing straight into the next. We can't just jump to where we want to be. We need to make sure that we work on all the foundations first before jumping the gun and going right into those environments your dog's going to struggle. And I like to follow a 3-step principle: low distraction, medium distraction, and high distraction. Most people skip steps. They're in the park with birds flying around and dogs everywhere, and they're just wondering why their dog isn't coming back. He hasn't learned to come back in that environment because you are asking too much too soon. So you need to start in low distraction environments, and I want you to follow a percentage rule of 85%. Do not progress into a new environment if your dog isn't 85% or above in the current environment that you are in. So what that translates to is they need to be responding to 8 out of 10 reps of recall in that current environment before you progress. And as I promised earlier, I'm going to get into why genetics matter. Your dog's genetics most likely will be working against you. Gundogs are bred to work independently, but that independence must come with a handler. However, if that side of their genetics isn't tapped into and isn't managed, they just go full independence mode. And as you've most commonly found, they just switch off from you. And when your dog then gallivants off running after birds or chasing the dogs in the park, they're not actually being naughty, they're just doing what they were bred to do. That is their genetics. They've just been poured into the wrong outlets, or just simply not managed correctly. And you can't fight that as much as you might want to try. What we need to do is teach them how to be a gun dog with us rather than against us, because you will find your gun dog will either be an independent gun dog or a partnered gun dog. It's just up to you in which you want to allow. And lastly, and this is super important, consistency, not only with yourself, but also across everyone who has involvement with this dog. It isn't listen to mum, pay attention to mum, but then half-arse it for Jerry and half-arse it for Dave. It needs to be consistency across the board in order to get to the desired outcome. If just one person allows for that recall to be ignored, unfortunately, everyone else is going to suffer. And then you'll most likely find, oh, his recall is great, until it isn't. If you're strict about it, but your partner lets them off the hook, your dog is learning that it only matters sometimes. And that doesn't work, because then they're always going to choose that sometimes over every single time. Why would your gun dog want to come back every single time when they could just rehearse coming back sometimes and be a free independent gun dog? So if you are sat there on the sofa right now with your partner, I want you to look at them sternly and tell them how it is. Consistency is key. You need to be consistent with your dog, not taking them out and watching the flipping match scores from the game at the weekend whilst the dog's pissing about in the wind and not listening. Or you ladies are not getting away with this as well. If you're there listening to your true crime podcast as you're walking along and Jeremiah's 3 fields away not paying attention, you need to be making sure that you are consistent, because someone is suffering, and it's both the dog and you guys. So there we have it. That is my 7 reasons as to why your Gundog's recall fails outside. If you liked this video and you'd actually like a demo on how to demonstrate and get good recall with your dog, I highly recommend that you watch this video, this one, just this one right here. Give that a click, give it a watch, and let me know your thoughts.